Hello, I'm Alan Lewis, also known as Visually Creative. Now, the reason I've included this is because Visually Creative, being my budding and emerging style, my pseudonym, if you like, this has come about largely, I'm now understanding, because of research. So I've kept true to myself and I've designed this PDF as true to myself as I can and the knowledge that I've learned as we've come through. The first week was an interesting week for me. I thought I knew a bit about research, right? I mean, when I wanted a new computer, I'd research it and I'd talk to people and ask them their opinions. Little did I know, it has really no relevance or bearing to UX research or any real industry style research. One of the challenges was to interview someone to find out about their travel destinations, was what I chose, and I wasn't allowed to lead it in any way or tell them what I wanted to know, but I had to try and find this information out anyway. Also, we created a PDF template, as you can see, true to myself, quite bright and colourful, just playing around with moving the things about the page to see how they feel. Started with almost like a golden ratio box style. Then we did some research, and these were just astounding. I mean, this was amazing. How can you teach a tongue to hear? Well, apparently you can. And also, beautiful. A mother that designed something out of empathy and love for her child to give a better quality of life because that child has poor mobility. And this design was so amazing that it's helped other children, many children, and they've even designed more products to help. This is truly what human-centered design can do. I also put together some documents when I hit something that's new for me, that's really new, like reflective writing, and I've gone back to it over the course of the semester, and it's been very useful. So, human-centered design, this was something I learned about in this semester. And personas, this was interesting. You make some assumptions, you do a little bit of research. I decided to make it a wide array of people to be a good cross-section. Mapping techniques, well, I did mind maps, but not stuff like this before. These mapping systems showed me how you can group things, correlate things, learn pain points about things. Okay, a lot of it is assumptions or educated assumptions, but it gets you moving in the right direction, thinking the right things. We also had to start research. I picked 65 to 70-year-olds, and it was lots of research, and I don't mind admitting it was dry. It's not my favourite thing in the world, but once I got to the end of it, I realised I could make it better. Empathy mapping, a big part of human-centered design, something that is intrinsic to actually coming up with a good solution for a pain point. You need to understand what people feel, why they feel it, what they want to be improved, and how this can be done. Which involves a bit of, that's it, design thinking. This was an interesting, also similar kind of thing to do. You know, it's a little bit like the persona, but just in a bit more depth. You could even take things from your persona and make a deeper thing, a bit more research, even come up with the craziest ideas you can, because you never know where that thought may lead. Prototyping was fun. I probably enjoyed this the most. It was astounding how quick and easy it was to mock up the weather app on my phone. Okay, it was new to me, but I enjoyed it. And it made me see how I could potentially look to solve some pain points for my 65 to 75-year-old group. And it really helped the development. Even to the point where I decided to try XD for the first time. Now, this was interesting because by this stage I'd almost sort of moved ahead a little bit in the timeline, and I had such good reaction that I took this further and I learned XD and I put this thing together and I made it work, and I tested it with someone that's actually used to using apps as like a baseline. And then from that feedback, I made some more changes. And then I took this to two people, a male and a female, within the age group to see what their thoughts are. And they thought it was great. They loved it. They thought it was easy to use. And they felt that it was something they would use if it was available. Preparation for presenting. Presenting isn't something that I'm overly concerned about. It's something that I'm used to. I've done plenty of since being younger, in public or recorded like this. I'm not saying I'm an expert at it. It wasn't something that I was concerned about. The presentation that I created halfway through the module, I was actually quite happy with. This was really a first slide deck presentation that I put together. And it was a challenge. It went through stages of feedback and editing, but it got the message across. I thought things through carefully. I understood the message that I needed to get through. I made sure contrast was acceptable. And then I played with the compositions. In the end, I think what came out of it, for my level of experience, was just brilliant. I was so happy with it. Now, I know it's not perfect. I mean, nothing's ever perfect, right? But it went so well. What you can see there on the right was actually a moving recording of the thing in question working. You can actually see this app prototype working if you go to the actual PDF. There is a link for it there. And this was a bibliography of sorts at the end, so that people could see that I wasn't just saying things that I invented and that there were some basis behind it. Then we had an industry brief to choose from. I chose Visual Communication Language Project. This was to create a degree show visually and to create deliverables of a website design, social media, e-invite, physical, and physical A2 poster. Again, you guessed it, we had to research. A lot of it for me was physical, visual research. So checking out what they're doing, what they have been done in the shows. And I was lucky to find this article. It had all the graduation shows that I could draw on for visual inspiration to understand where they were moving for their website designs. I picked a few prestigious and well-known ones at random, not random, but I picked these particular ones, and I had to include Falmouth as well. And we moved into week 7. Things are starting to get traction, but this week is the face-to-face week. So I did more research. I couldn't actually make it this time to the face-to-face, which was a shame. But it did give me an opportunity to try something new. I'd never screen printed. I wanted to screen print, but now I had a week to give it a go. Here you can see me prepping the screens. I couldn't actually expose them because I don't have the means to clean them properly yet, so I had to use paper templates. Some masking tape, some double-sided tape, a little bit of ingenuity, and some tape which you can see in the bottom right hand. That is actually stuff that people use to put vinyl lettering that's been cut out. It holds it gently. It's a very, very, very gentle tape. It causes no damage. So as you can see, these are the colours and my attempt. You can see in the big bucket so that it doesn't dry out. Obviously, if the ink dries out, it causes a problem. Also, in the bottom right hand corner, as you can see, once things are pretty much dried, I use this just to keep it flat so that it would flatten nicely rather than starting to wrinkle up a bit. I even had fun making my own colour by mixing paints and discovered an interesting thing. I loved the texture within the blue. It wasn't meant to be, it was an accident, but nonetheless I enjoyed it. bottom right hand side there you can see. So I actually perfect coloured it so that I could use it. Happy accidents. User interviews. I was quite fortunate. By this stage I'm like a little ahead. Almost like all the time I seem to be like a week ahead, or I know what's coming almost. It's quite freaky sometimes, but I managed to get a user interview with somebody that actually helped to set up a degree show. And because I was given an interesting bit of advice by my lecturer, I also asked the question, is there anyone else that I could talk to? And as it turned out, there was, Rivka. Now I knew Rivka. We've had dealings with Rivka through the course. Again, when you're looking through the actual PDF, you can see there is a link to this one, to the actual recording of the interview. It's about 20 to 30 minutes long. So now you can see I'm starting to ideate. I had the idea of a duality, of a choice. This is something that I asked the two people that I interviewed, and they both agreed was a good idea. They just maintained I should be careful not to make too much work for myself. As you can see here, this is the early ideation still, but it's not an idea that got left behind. This was where I started to fine-tune the logo ideas and bottom right, which eventually became the splash page idea. I even mocked up a very simple and basic website. I mean, you've got to look to see it, right? But this is the point. Very quick, very loose, very easy. And that's what happened. I made progress. Here you can see those ideas coming more to life, becoming more of a mid to hi-fi representation. Getting quite close to the end now of this semester. Gave some ideas that I put together now and got some feedback. And the feedback I got was good, very positive. One of the things that this is a product of is, again, somebody in the cohort, Rosie, suggested that perhaps I could, oh no, sorry, it wasn't Rosie, it was the lecturer, Oliver. He suggested that I could, zoom in on specific parts of it to see how interesting it was. It may come up with something, and actually it did. I quite liked the geometric value of it, how it looked to the eye, and it made me want to pursue it more. Starting to really get some good progress now, coming in with some ideas for invites, for social media build-up posts, also for A2 sized posters with still that same look of duality. Here is the, as I mentioned earlier, became a splash page image. We got a lot of positive feedback from these. Even the posters are designed to work on social media so they could be used for both, and it worked out quite well. And then we finally arrived at week 12, the final week. This is where everything got put together and finalised, and I'm quite proud of what I've done. So here are the main design assets. These were largely created by me. Obviously, the shield is a vector recreation, not designed by me, and the original F for Falmouth also wasn't designed by me, but the rest I created. And here are the industry brief deliverables. First, the website. Here you can see what would be the splash page. As soon as you move the cursor, you will get this light visual journey or dark visual journey appear. It won't be there until you hover over it. And it will just say select your visuals, and you'll select either a light visual journey or a dark visual journey. And here I've maintained the duality, the yin-yang if you like, and kept black and white and grayscale. Just that little hint of yellow, the splash, to make it interesting. Here is the alternate. Looks the same, but it's just opposite if you like. This is what it looks like with the menu drop downs. And from here I decided I didn't need to continually make two of each, so I kept with the lighter, and I decided to then create the other pages. I've kept them basic, I've kept them scaled back, simple, easy to navigate, with an obvious hierarchy. And also I've often offered options. Do you want to just look at a particular student? Do you want to just look at all the work in any order, or A to Z order, or as categories, subject categories? Then the social media advertising. There are my 3 build-up posters for social media. Really like how these came about. Again, this was through feedback and iterations and collaboration. All of this. None of this would have come about without it. Here is the e-invites, both light and dark versions, actually made. And this physical invite is a front and a back. So as you can see, the main side, the front side, is the same as the e-invite. But on the physical invite is this silver foil with these foiled lines showing the unity between the two, the F and the F, the original Falmouth logo and the newer one put together, showing continuity, unity and direction. And finally we have the A2 posters also that were created, and these are the 2 A2 posters in all their glory. And that brings me to the end of my presentation.